A violent storm is tearing through the sea. Waves crash over a wooden ship. Sailors pull ropes, fight the wind, and throw cargo into the water. They are doing everything they can to stay alive. But below the deck, one man is asleep. His name is Jonah, and Jonah knows something the sailors do not know. He is running from God. God had told him to go to the great city of Nineveh and warn its people. Jonah refused. He boarded a ship going the other way. Now the sea is raging around him. Soon, the sailors will discover the truth. They will throw Jonah into the water. The storm will stop, and a great fish will swallow him. But that is still not the most surprising part of this story, because Jonah was not only running from a dangerous mission, he was running because he did not want his enemies to receive God's mercy. And before this story ends, Jonah will have to face something much harder than a storm. He will have to face his own heart. Jonah was a prophet from Israel. The Bible also mentions him as Jonah, son of Amittai, a prophet from Gath-hepher, during the reign of King Jeroboam II. A prophet was someone chosen to deliver God's message. Jonah had done this before. Then one day, God's word came to him again. This time, the command was different. Go to Nineveh. Warn the people, because their wickedness has become great. Nineveh was an important city in Assyria, east of Israel. Assyria was powerful. Its armies were feared. Its kings wanted more land and more control. For people living near Assyria, that power could bring fear, war, and violence. Now God was telling an Israelite prophet to walk into an Assyrian city and warn its people. Jonah did not want to go, so he made a choice. Nineveh was to the east. Jonah went west. He traveled down to Joppa, a busy port by the Mediterranean Sea. There he found a ship sailing toward Tarshish, a distant place in the west. Jonah paid the fare. He stepped onto the ship. The sailors prepared to leave. Ropes were pulled in. The sail caught the wind. The coast slowly moved farther away. Jonah was now traveling in the opposite direction from the place God had sent him. He may have left the road to Nineveh behind, but he had not left God behind. Far from shore, the weather changed. Wind struck the ship. The sea became rough. Then the storm grew violent. Huge waves crashed against the vessel. The wooden ship shook under the force of the water. The sailors became afraid. These men knew the sea, but this storm was more than they could control. Each sailor cried out to his own God. Then they began throwing cargo overboard. Boxes, goods, and supplies disappeared into the waves. What had seemed valuable before was now only extra weight. They were trying to save their lives, but Jonah was not helping them. He had gone below deck, and there, while the storm raged above him, Jonah was sleeping. The captain found him. He woke Jonah and demanded that he call on his God. Maybe Jonah's God would notice them. Maybe they would survive. The sailors still did not know why this was happening, so they cast lots to discover who had brought this trouble upon them. The lot pointed to Jonah. Now the sailors surrounded him with questions. Who are you? Where do you come from? What have you done? Jonah told them he was a Hebrew. He told them he worshiped the Lord, the God of heaven, who made the sea and the dry land. The sailors became even more afraid. Jonah had already told them that he was running from the Lord. Now the storm was becoming worse. The sailors asked Jonah what they should do. Jonah looked at the violent sea. Then he gave them a terrible answer. "Throw me into the water." He told them the storm had come because of him, but the sailors did not want to kill him. Instead, they grabbed their oars and tried to row back to land. They fought harder. They pulled harder. But the sea fought back. The waves grew stronger. At last, the sailors cried out to Jonah's God. They begged him not to hold them guilty for Jonah's death. Then they lifted Jonah from the deck. For a moment, he was above the raging water. Then they let him go. Jonah fell into the sea. And almost at once, the wind dropped. The waves became calm. The ship stopped fighting the water. The sailors stared at the quiet sea. They had been afraid of the storm. Now they were filled with fear and respect for the God who had stopped it. They offered a sacrifice to the Lord and made vows to him. But Jonah was no longer on the ship. He was sinking beneath the water. Jonah sank deeper. The surface moved farther above him. The light became weaker. Water surrounded him. Seaweed wrapped around his head. In the prayer he later gave, Jonah described himself going down into the deep, as if death itself was closing around him. There was no ship coming back. There was no shore close enough to reach. Jonah could not save himself. Then something enormous moved through the water. God provided a great fish. The Bible does not tell us what kind of fish it was. It simply tells us that God provided it. The creature reached Jonah and swallowed him. Jonah disappeared into darkness, but he was alive. The fish was not the end of Jonah's life. It became the strange way God kept him from dying in the sea. For 3 days and 3 nights, Jonah remained inside the great fish. No sunlight, no road, no ship, no control. The man who had tried to run from God's command now had nowhere else to go. So Jonah prayed. Inside the fish, Jonah remembered what had happened. He remembered the waves closing over him. He remembered sinking. He remembered how close he had come to death. And he thanked God for hearing him. When Jonah had no strength left, God had saved his life. Jonah now understood that rescue had not come from his own power. He could not command the storm. He could not command the sea. He could not command the fish. His life was in God's hands. Jonah promised that he would honor the Lord. He declared that salvation comes from God. Then, after 3 days and 3 nights, God commanded the fish. The great creature moved toward the shore. It reached shallow water, and Jonah was thrown out onto dry land. He was wet, weak, alive. The man who had run from God's command had been given another chance. Then God's word came to Jonah again. The command was almost the same. Get up, go to Nineveh, give the people the message I tell you. This time, Jonah obeyed. He began the journey toward Assyria. The Bible does not tell us every place he passed on the way, so we do not need to invent them. What matters is that Jonah was finally walking toward the city he had once tried so hard to avoid. At last, Nineveh came into view. It was a great city near the Tigris River in northern Mesopotamia. Its streets were filled with people. Officials moved through the city. Merchants worked. Families lived their daily lives. Animals filled courtyards and streets. Temples and large buildings showed the city's importance. Jonah entered the city. He walked among the people. Then he began to speak the warning God had given him. 40 more days. Nineveh would be overthrown. The message was short. The meaning was clear. The city was in danger because of its evil. Jonah may have expected anger. He may have expected people to ignore him. The Bible does not tell us what reaction Jonah expected, but it tells us what actually happened. The people listened.